Hello and welcome to the NIGP webinar Introducing NIGP Pathways, presented by Rick Grimm. Rick has served as NIGP's Chief Executive Officer for 21 years. He holds a bachelor's degree in Business Administration from the University of Miami and a master's degree in Public Administration from Florida International University. He served county governments and public school districts for 23 years, including over 12 years in the management of the public procurement function, before joining the NIGP team in 1998. As NIGP continues to develop, support, and promote public procurement, Rick's recent priorities have been the development of partnerships with universities and associations that represent the direct reports of the procurement function. To leverage these relationships and enhance NIGP's role as a trusted advisor, Rick reorganized the NIGP team with a focus on content management and sustained membership growth. During the next 12 months, the Institute will design and offer certificate programs for professionals entering the workplace and for seasoned professionals who seek high-level skills on procurement specialties such as technology and construction. If at any time during the webinar you need technical assistance, please let us know in the Q&A box. During the presentation, you may submit questions to the Q&A box on your screen, and we will take them during specified parts of the presentation. Rick, would you like to go ahead and get us started?
Absolutely, Justin. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you. We have close to 90 participants on this webinar, and I know that a couple of folks are trying to make sure that they still log in. So, Justin, if you could look at that, that would be wonderful. But I'm assuming that for everyone else, we are on the screen that says, "Your future is now," and that's exactly what we're talking about this afternoon. It's about how you envision your future and how NIGP will be on this journey, this pathways to help you be very, very successful in your public procurement career. I'd like to begin just by having you spend just a minute or two thinking about your future. For those of you that may be like me, I've been in practice since, in public procurement practice since the 1980s. A few things have changed since then. When I first started procurement, we didn't even have fax machines, much less automation and of the procurement function, where everything from bid lists to quotes to RFPs were transmitted via the internet. And so my future as a public procurement professional was very, very narrow. It was I'm gonna stay in the profession, and I will gain my 30 years of my career, and then be able to retire and spend time with the grandkids. But today is different. If you think about how you would reinvent yourself and reinvent your career, you realize that the career paths are not always straight, but they are fairly fluid. This is particularly true for younger professionals. There is data that suggests that for millennials and the next generations, not only will they change their employers 4 or 5 times, but they also may even change their careers. One career may be in public service, another career may be in engineering, a third career may be in retail or sales. And so the concept behind Pathways is to help you in these career paths, as fluid as they may be for you, and then ultimately to make sure that you have a lot of choice. We're going to spend a lot of time today talking about choice, because this is about you and making sure that you understand the choices that are available at your disposal through NIGP and Pathways. And to make sure that not only are those, that you have lots of choice and customization, but certainly provide you ultimate flexibility. So we've spent, at NIGP, we spent at least a good portion of this last year, over the last 12 months, interviewing members. And it goes through a variety of ways. It may be an assessment that you did after you went to an annual conference, or it may be the assessments or the questions and surveys that we will send to you after you finish a particular educational unit, whether that's online or in person. And also on member surveys. And this is what you have told us. You've said that you really want to make sure that learning is affordable, that it really fits into my budget. You know that budgets are doing slightly better than they were at the beginning of this decade in 2009, 10, 11. Those were terrible years for public procurement. But you still have limited funds, and so learning has to be affordable, but it also has to be accessible and flexible. So if you're working on a huge RFP for automation and you can't get to classes right now, you want the flexibility to take those classes on your own timelines or based on your own availability. We know that adult learners really appreciate in-person classroom training where you can go to a conference room or a hotel and spend that 2 or 3 days in class because that networking is so critical. But that doesn't fit everyone's needs. You have individuals who could be young parents and have children at home, or aging parents at home and cannot travel to get to a class. Or there could be funding limitations where you cannot go and travel. So you're looking for accessibility. The other two things that you have told us as members is please make learning customizable to align with my career and relevant to the roles that I'm playing today or that I aspire to play in the future. So this is what we've heard from you, and these are the issues that have shaped Pathways as we talk about what that program means for you. You've also talked about how you are recognized, how you're publicly recognized for the learning that you achieve. First of all, you've said, hey, listen, I want to integrate a learning outcome with some way to be recognized. So if I take a class and I pass an assessment, I want to have some way to be recognized for that achievement. I also want to have choice. So we know in today's market that individuals have that opportunity to apply for professional certification. Some folks cannot meet the eligibility standards. Those eligibility standards may be difficult to attain because it requires a formal degree, or it may require extensive years of experience in order to apply. What other choice do you have? And so this is an issue that has been raised with us. Within that context, how do we, to the extent that we can, limit the barriers for recognition so that I don't necessarily have to get a degree if I don't have one, and I am kind of late in my career and you just really don't have that opportunity to go back and get a college degree. And I also want recognition to provide a really clear pathway, ways in which I can earn recognition for those accomplishments in learning. So if you were with us last year in Nashville, Tennessee for the NIGP Forum, we talked about Learning Reimagined. And so this really is bringing us another 12 months forward. We're about ready to pack up our offices here in Herndon for the Austin Forum. If you think about your future being focused on how you reimagine your learning and also how you reimagine what recognition looks like. And so when we talk about that, learning really is how do we enhance the competencies that you need in the workplace? And then when it comes to recognition, how do we recognize those competencies through a credentialing program? So another way to look at it is learning really is all about providing opportunities for you anywhere, anytime, any way. And to give you options in recognition, Pathways talks about certificates and specializations and certification as well. So let's talk a little bit about what Pathways is. In its short form, Pathways is integrating professional development to credentialing. It's competency-based learning and credentialing pathways that are personalized and customized not for where you are today, although that will do that, but it helps you in every stage and every phase of your working life in public procurement. Insofar as that, it really is looking at professional development and credentialing in a holistic way. Those of you that are continuing to build your pathway in this profession, you may be currently in a buyer capacity, but you aspire to go into mid-management, or those of you who are in mid-management aspire to move into executive leadership, like a chief procurement officer, etc. So Pathways really is trying to be much more holistic about how we integrate learning and credentialing at every phase of your career. It's also competency-based. So it looks at not only knowledge and skills, but also the performance that are really important in the workplace. In essence, we think about competency-based as going beyond what you need to know in order to do your job, and towards what you do in the workplace every day as you serve the citizens of your community. So it does go beyond just being able to identify knowledge, but it's also to develop those skills and competencies that really help you in your performance in the workplace. And Pathways, again, make sure that things are available, accessible, flexible, trying to remove as many barriers as possible. That gives you more choices, and with more choices to be engaged, that gives you stronger engagement as well. So that's what Pathways is, and we're going to go into much more detail, but I wanted to give you kind of that 35,000 foot view. But what will it do for you? It's there to provide you choice so that you, as a professional, have control, have autonomy over your career development pathways, to give you choice. It's also to give you that opportunity to customize your learning. So I will be the first to tell you that, like many of you, I fell into public procurement. As a matter of fact, I was the nemesis for the procurement organization in my local jurisdiction down in Florida. And I complained bitterly about procurement as a user of the procurement function. And wouldn't you know, the procurement director retired, and my boss turned around and he says, "You're the one that's been complaining all these years. I want you to go and fix it for me and for the organization." So I fell into public procurement. At that time, I heard about this company or this organization called NIGP, and I began to take classes. Those classes are absolutely wonderful, and really grateful that I had NIGP to fall on as my trusted advisor. But today, we realize, just as I did, that I may go to a 3-day class that's on contract administration, and part of that curriculum for that 3-day class may include things like warehousing and inventory control. So I'll deal with quality assurance and inventory and inspection and disposal and asset management. So I may be spending 4 hours of that 3-day course learning about something that I cannot apply to my workplace because we didn't have warehousing. That's what we're talking about when we mention customized learning, focusing on the skills you need to do the job you are doing today. Again, it's what you do today or aspire to do in the future. And you'll see how that customization plays out. And then actually to really focus in on that instant recognition, a way in which you are acknowledged at the time that you achieve that learning that you can share with others that are not only in the profession, but other professional colleagues that you may have throughout your organization. So in short, it really is looking at everything from career guidance, again, having control over your environment, to make sure the learning is relevant, that it fits the particular work that you do on your job that you aspire to do. Make sure it fits your budget. Make sure it's flexible, because I have a very demanding schedule. I have individuals at home that I need to take care of. It fits in with my learning style. Ways in which I could be recognized instantly, and then to provide credible backing through a trusted source like NIGP. So this is how Pathways helps us with a journey The other piece that's really important for us is to understand that it's all about building a stronger workforce. As we have interviewed our members to find the best ways to develop not only learning and content, but also recognition, we've also had conversations with the bosses of public procurement. And with almost no exception, they have said, we are really concerned about what's happening in our industry, in public service. So many people retiring. How do we fill those gaps with individuals that really understand public procurement? So a key component of Pathways is to build the competencies you need in order to be successful on the job, because when you build those competencies, that creates a stronger workforce. And for those of you that aspire to move into leadership roles, then that ability to develop those competencies and that stronger workforce gives us a pipeline of individuals who can move forward as the procurement leaders of today and to the future. And this is the one phenomenon that we are seeing very, very prominently these days. And more of the CPOs and the executive directors in procurement are retiring. There was a large number that retired at the end of June because it was fiscal year for a lot of individuals in public sector. And those jobs go vacant for sometimes 3 or 4 months because we don't have the right talent to bring people into leadership. So this is absolutely a critical objective for NIGP, to help build that stronger workforce, develop more capable leaders, because when we get those two pieces right, then we have that great opportunity to elevate the image of public procurement. Justin, let me stop right there and see if anyone has any questions before we delve into what Pathways is and how would we impact you. I mean, the really good things that I'm seeing are the side conversations about going to Austin, be your first time at Forum. We're absolutely thrilled for those of you that can be with us in Austin. Looks like another record breaker, by the way. I just heard that we have now hit the 1,500 mark, so that's really, really good. And at Austin, we're going to talk a lot more about Pathways, so you'll be able to learn more about the program, that even longer than what we'll get on this webinar. Justin, any questions that you're seeing from our attendees before I move on?
Yeah, I'm not seeing any, Rick.
Okay, great. Well, let's move on. Let's understand that Pathways is really comprised of 4 key components. Let's start first at this public procurement competency framework, because it's the foundation of how learning occurs. So we're going to talk about the competency framework, and then we will move into the 3 types of recognition that are going to be available through Pathways: certificates, specializations, and certification. I'm going to go through each one of those, and we'll address your questions as we go through the process. So let's first talk about this competency framework. A little bit of background on this. In about 2014-15, the Volcker Alliance decided that they wanted to do a piece of comprehensive research on the workforce competencies needed in public procurement. For those of you that are in the United States, you may know the name Paul Volcker. He was chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve. And as he moved off of the Federal Reserve and into doing more philanthropic work, he had this deep concern that so much money pumps through the public sector, both on the federal, state, provincial, and local level, that we need to make sure we have the right competencies for the workforce. And so they wanted to build a kind of a public procurement competency model that would identify these competencies that individuals will need to know. And so they partnered with a not-for-profit called Public Spend Forum. They ran a significant survey, although I will tell you that a lot of that survey was addressed onto the federal side of public procurement, and then Public Spend Forum approached NIGP, and we expanded that to look at a much more of a state and local framework. So you may be interested in downloading their particular piece of research by looking at the Volcker Alliance, because what will tell you is both where are the strengths of our current workforce and where do we have gaps. Again, the idea is to identify those competencies. Remember, competency is what you need to do in the workplace, not necessarily what you need to know, but how you apply that knowledge through skills and competencies in order to be successful on the job. I'll talk a little bit about some of those conclusions. But this is actually a piece that is very important to NIGP, as well as the trusted advisors, is that we really need to make sure that when our members go to class, that they develop the competencies they need in order to be successful on the job. And again, I cannot stress this enough. When we talk about competency, it is about knowledge and then applying that knowledge through the development of skills so that you perform exceptionally well on the job. That's what you're looking for as you look at that opportunity to grow your career, but it's also what the bosses of public procurement are looking for. And I've talked to quite a few of the bosses of procurement, and they're very, very proud and pleased that someone can sit through the rigors of a 4-hour exam and go through professional certification. But they're looking for something that goes beyond that. It's beyond what do you know, and how does that tie in with what you do on the job. So let's look at the framework. The framework is really made up of 7 focus areas, as you see here on the screen. And within each of those focus areas, there's a number of competencies, a total of 33 competencies that are around those 7 areas. We're going to take a look at each one of these so you just kind of get a feel for it. When we talk about customization of learning, each one of these competencies is taught in a modular fashion. So each competency will utilize a self-guided online course or group assignments or case studies or videos or readings or experiential activities. But learning is then divided down to that competency level to give you that modular flexibility. So here's an example of the leadership component. So we have 5 competencies under the leadership focus area. Now, if you take a look at this and you think about your own career, you may say, listen, I'm fine on communication strategies, and I've done a lot of relationship management. I'm fine there. Don't send me to a 5-day class or a 3-day class on leadership and teach me things that I already know. I'm looking for the flexibility to be able to jump in, learn, and jump out. So really, I need some help in problem solving and critical thinking. So you have that competency that's specific right to that class, that learning module. Each of these learning modules will eventually be available both online and in person. We'll talk a little bit about that delivery mechanism in a bit, but by June of 2020, each of the 33 that you see here will be available both online and in person. So that, again, if you want to just focus on problem solving and critical thinking, there's a module for that. You can get in there, develop that competency, and get out. For each competency, there is an assessment that occurs at the end, and it's really to assess how well you learned, but it also assesses for NIGP how well did we deliver the content so that you're going to be successful on the job. Because, by the way, none of this is about NIGP. This is about you creating a learning environment for you that helps you be successful on the job. So here are the 5 that deal with leadership. Let's take a look at another one of the 7 areas. This is on strategy. And you see, this one has 3 competencies. So again, I'm fine with mission and transformation. I need help on social responsibility alignment. And so there'll be a competency module specifically for that one. Or let's look at planning and analysis. There's 6 competencies here, and you see the list. Now, if you go back to the Volcker Alliance, the findings were that only 1 in 4 public procurement professionals that they interviewed had competencies in market analysis and forecasting. And yet it's a component of what we do on the job as public procurement professionals, particularly if we're playing at that kind of the mid-management or executive management. We need to make sure that we understand market analysis. Or even if we're putting together solicitations, we need to be able to have that competency in place. So again, if I've got everything down pat, because I've been in the profession for 15 years, but I realize market analysis is an area that I need to focus in on, I can zoom in specifically on that competency. Let's take one more. Here's policy and legislation. Again, 5 competencies. By the way, not all competencies are created equal. So depending upon the content of each one of these modules, it may be, boy, in some cases it may be just an hour tutorial on the competency. But as we delve deeper, another competency may be, you know, a 4-hour, an 8-hour, or even a 16-hour training session that will be available to you. So I don't want you to think of each one of these as just kind of a 1 or a 2-hour tutorial with some classroom exercises. Each module, each competency will be different because it has a different impact on you as a professional. And just to take a look at the entire framework, you can see again, there are the 7 areas of focus, and then you have competencies underneath each one of those. So let's stop for a minute and see if you have any questions. I know that I've seen one here about mentorship programs. That's a great question. And we will, Shauna, we're going to tie that into pathways eventually. For now, NIGP has a mentorship committee that is working on a mentor-mentee relationship. And that would be kind of a one-on-one connection to tie you in with an individual that is, you know, if you are the seasoned professionals, you could serve as a mentor. And if you are aspiring, there's going to be a mentor that will be available to you. Part of it is also on leadership. Leadership programs help you develop those skills in leadership. As a matter of fact, we just had this past weekend our kickoff for our year-long program for developing aspiring leaders called Leaders Edge. And I know a person on this phone call, and I'm not going to call her out, but I know that at least I saw her name on the list of participants as one of the great individuals that has joined Leaders Edge. So that's an opportunity that's available to you as well. The other thing I want to mention, Shauna, is that in the second phase, once we're developing all these learning modules, these competencies, then it is our plan shortly thereafter to help you build your own pathway. So as you go back, let me just go back here for a second. When you think about as you enter the profession, maybe as a buyer 1, entry-level buyer, and you're looking at these 33 competencies, you don't need to know all of that from the beginning. This is a journey, you know? It's a marathon, not a sprint. So you may say as a buyer, well, listen, at a minimum, I probably should understand mission and public benefit, and definitely you need to understand ethics and transparency, and maybe enabling legislation. I really want to get down into how do I do requirements, planning and standardization, and then sourcing and spec development. That may be where I want to be as a kind of entry-level buyer. As I move forward in my career, my pathway, I'm going to be picking up more and more of those competencies. So maybe this is where public benefit transformation kicks in. Learning how to work with internal customers. Maybe it is down in that more analytical phase where I'm doing marketing, cost and price and value analysis and looking at spend and risk. And then maybe in my next phase in my career, I'm really going to look at those leadership issues about how do I drive change and how do I recruit for the right talent. So what we'll do is we'll build a kind of a tutorial to let you walk through the 33 competencies and figure out where your strengths are, because why should you spend your time and your public entity's dollars to go to a class for competencies that you already have. Let's get it really customized. Again, this is all about you, giving you choice and give you customization to be able to drive those results. One other thing that just to mention before we move on, each, I guess, as I said before, each one of these is a learning module. They are actually being developed by subject matter experts. They are senior practitioners who have walked the talk. They are both from the United States and from Canada. They are from state and local and provincial governments and K-12s and universities. It's a very, very diversified team that has come together to develop this content. So we're really, really pleased that they have taken on this Herculean job of helping us develop content. Of course, NIGP's had content over the years, right? So it's repurposing the existing content, but it's also looking at where our gaps have been in our content and then closing those gaps through new development. So again, these are the 33 competencies that we are developing now. Justin, any more questions?
No, Rick.
So let's proceed. Remember, it's not just about learning, it's also recognizing what you learn. That's what Pathways is. It's connecting or integrating learning with recognition. So the first of the three that we'll talk about are certificate programs. So what are certificates? Well, they come in three varieties, three flavors. The first is the level one is this competency badge. So let's go back to the 33 competencies. You have a choice of which competency you're going to take. Remember, we're trying to eliminate barriers. So we're not saying you have to take competency A before you can take competency B or competency C. Why would you force you to go back and take competency A, like ethics and transparency, when you already have that down pat? So you can begin to pick and customize, choose, think of it as a menu, right? Look at the competencies, look at where your weakness is, take that competency module, that learning module, take it either online or in a classroom setting. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Once you finish the course, there is an assessment that's part of it, and as you complete the assessment, then you get a competency badge. Now, this is a digital badge. If you're not familiar with digital badging, this is becoming extremely popular, both in not-for-profit associations like NIGP, but also on colleges and universities. What a digital badge does is it contains, through that just one kind of a view, like a logo, because it's digital, you can click into the competency badge and look at all the metadata that's involved in it. So in other words, what were the learning outcomes that this individual achieved by going to this class? How many contact hours? All of that information that tells you that when I get a badge in ethics and transparency, what I know. Now, the nice thing about a competency badge is that you will get it from NIGP. It will be resident on your profile in our learning management system called Aspire. But because it's a digital badge and because we are utilizing a piece of software that allows you to transport that digital badge into all the other kinds of social media options, is that same digital badge on Aspire you can put on your LinkedIn account or any other social media. So again, this is a way in which you get recognized not only within your own framework of NIGP, but to be able to share with other people that are that you have connections with in LinkedIn and other sites. So it's a digital badge, and again, that's the level one. So imagine you could go through 33 competencies and have 33 digital badges. But we're suggesting that some people would prefer to look at how a bundling of competency badges lead to a course certificate. So that's the level two. What we are doing is we have a content management committee. It's a group of your peers So there's senior practitioners who have come together and they've looked at the relevancy of competencies to each other, and they kind of have bundled or stacked those competency badges into a course certificate. And so that's the level 2. And they also have taken groups of course certificates and bundle them or stack them into a designation. So what does that mean? Take a look at what's coming available in only a few short weeks. So the first of the core certificates that we are developing is a core certificate on strategy and policy. This is actually a program that is being offered as a pre-forum 2-day seminar in Austin. Right now we have, I believe, 14 or 15 individuals that are registered for that class. And it actually is a combination of 4 of the competency badges. So when the individuals who take this course in Austin complete the course and complete the assessment, they will not only have the competency badges, but they'll have a core certificate in strategy and policy. The next core certificate will be in planning and analysis, and it is made up of 3 competencies. It will first roll out in October, again, as an in-person class, so stay tuned on where that's going to be held. And then the last of the core certificates are on sourcing and contracting, and it represents 7 modules, and that will be available mid to late fall of 2019 in an in-person format. So again, strategy and policy 4 plus planning and analysis 3 plus sourcing and contracting 7, you have, through these 3 core certificates, 14 competencies that you have been able to achieve. And when you have those 3 core certificates, you can get this designated public procurement associate, which is really kind of the baseline certificate or designation that will be available under Pathways. Now, a couple things to mention here. One is, I said that these are going to be available in person. They're also going to be available in online formats about 2 months after the course certificates become available, because it's the same content. It's just that we need to change the structure in which how delivery occurs, and so our instructional designers are working on that as we speak. The second part of it, that just to emphasize, is because these 3 that are in the green are in person, any of our chapter affiliates, or 70 chapter affiliates, can host any of these classes. Again, strategy and policy, 2-day, planning and analysis, 2-day, and sourcing and contracting is a 3-day class. So your local chapter could host these classes, these 2 or 3-day classes. They continue with the same kind of program we have for chapters, so we provide kind of a revenue sharing structure with our chapters in support of their efforts, their marketing efforts. And then as a result, the participants, the attendees, get these course certificates that are available. Okay? I do want to address Victoria's question. So how do these core certificates correlate to the CPPO or B certification? Well, let me come back to, I don't want to make you too dizzy here, but let me come back to the competency framework. Those of you that, we're going to talk about certification later on in this agenda. I won't miss that opportunity to have that conversation, but if you think about the 7 key core areas, again, I have both my CPPO and my CPPB. I know that a lot of that knowledge that's based on the OMB are focusing on starting at the beginning of the clock, policy and legislation, planning and analysis, sourcing, and solicitation and contract administration. And the first parts of those core certificates are actually sitting in that same kind of alignment. Where we go beyond that is to cover these areas of leadership, business principles, and strategy. So if you have your O and or B, and you want to take these competencies as part of your recertification points, The only thing that the UPPCC requests that you do is you have to align it to their body of knowledge. And so almost all of this, particularly the first four that I mentioned, from policy over to contract administration, definitely align with the body of knowledge that's in the UPPCC. So that's if you are trying to do recertification points, and if you're working to achieve your O or B certification, they also will count for your the training number of training contact hours that you need in order to apply for certification. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about certification as we go down the pike. So again, course certificates beginning this month through November 14 of those competency modules. So think about, again, this is about choice. So if you already have your certifications, maybe a course certificate is not the answer for you, but maybe the answer for you is one or two of those competency badges. There's no sense in repeating what you already learned. But if you have something in the competency framework that will help you in your journey, you have the choice to grab one or two or multiples of those competency badges. Let's now talk about specializations, because I think specializations are really for everyone as well, because what specializations are focusing on is kind of a deep dive into a specialty knowledge track. So they are standalone. So in other words, you don't have to get all 33 competencies before you can move to this level. It's not predicated or stacked on any of those certificates attained. I will tell you that in some of those specializations, it may be important for you to first demonstrate that you have a baseline. So for example, we're going to talk about public construction in a minute. Well, it's hard to take a specialization in public construction unless you first understand at least a little bit about sourcing and RFPs. So there may be some requisites associated there, but they're going to be fairly limited. And they're limited only insofar as you want to make sure that when you take a specialization, you have that baseline knowledge in order to be successful in the specialization. But as a rule, they're standalone. It works the same way as the certificate programs. You take the learning. That learning is, again, in a variety of settings. It's case studies, it's classroom activity, it's reading, it's videos, all of those pieces. Again, model the same way in Pathways, so it's available online and it's available in person. And once you pass the requirements, you will receive a digital badge to showcase and share your accomplishments in that specialization. We'll probably do specializations at least on an annual basis. The first one we'll roll out is a specialization in technology procurements. This is a program that's going to be offered as a pre-formed workshop in Austin. If you have registered, congratulations, thank you very much. Unfortunately, if you've not registered yet but want to take it, we're totally sold out on this procurement, technology procurements. We have a maximum of 20 students in that class. In 2020, as we convene in Chicago, our next specialization is on public construction procurements. These titles actually come from you. We survey our members periodically, throughout the year, particularly after the annual forum and after some of those major conferences. We ask you, what additional topics are you interested in learning from? And I will tell you, at the absolute top of the mark has been technology procurements and public construction procurements. You can envision that as we go down the road, we think that other specializations that will come to the forefront, sustainability, how to buy with federal funds, cooperative purchasing, emergency management and recovery. Those are the kinds of specializations we're really going to do a deep dive. Now, just like certificates, specializations come in 2 or 3 flavors. They come in as an in-person class. They come in as a virtual, online, and on-demand. So Again, think about Pathways as about choice, about flexibility, about accessibility. So if you want to go to an in-person class, again, we're going to offer it in Austin. But if you miss that opportunity, this class will also be available through the chapter network. So chapters can host these specializations in technology procurements. By the way, it's a 3-day course. And as a result of taking that course and finishing the assessment, those individuals will get a competency badge, which is really a benefit to the chapter network as well. So everything that you've heard me talk about that will be, available both in person and then online, they're going to be available in both settings and will be available approximately on the online portion about 2 months after we finish the in-person one. So I know Derek asked that question, when will they be online? Anticipate about 2 months. What we learn in the classroom are some of the areas that we really need to, maybe we have to retool the content a little bit. So we want to get that down pat and then move it to our instructional designers that will put it in online format. So I think you can think about a 2-month delay from the time things are issued in an in-person format to what we would be online. So any questions that you have for me on the competency framework or how the competency framework is utilized, how it's integrated in order to provide you certificates, which is digital badges and course certificates and designations, as well as specializations. Justin, any questions that you see coming in?
Nothing in the Q&A box, Rick.
Excellent. So let's go to certification. And let me tell you, this crew is very patient, Justin. This is probably the sixth, maybe, I don't know, probably the sixth webinar that we've done on Pathways. I usually don't get to say good afternoon before people ask me what are the eligibility requirements for certification. So I appreciate you letting me get through that process. The reason why I do it in this pattern is that this is not about one size fits all. So the beauty of Pathways is that certification is a choice. It may not be your final destination. If you have your CPPO or CPPB, I can tell you how those contrast, but you may decide, oh, I'm perfectly fine with where I am today. That's great. But if you're looking for something different, here is a new certification that's available to you. Or I'm only, I have my CPPO and B, and I have a CPSM from ISM. I want to focus in on the specializations. It's all about you, and it's all about choice that's available through Pathways. So when we talk about a new certification for NIGP, which is the NIGP Certified Procurement Professional, there really are 4 major reasons why the NIGP board decided to go down this route. I think the first one is that while our educational programs are continuing to grow in significant numbers, as I said earlier, when we were gathered in Nashville, we had a record-breaking forum in 2018, and we thought we were at the top of our game. I think we had about 1,350. Right now, our registrations are over 1,500 for Austin. So our education programs grow, but less than 1/4 of us in members have any kind of certification. And that includes not only the UPPC certifications, but let's add into that certifications that are available through NCMA, ISM, APICS, CIPS. So 3 out of every 4, so I've got, basically 120 on this call, 30 of you have some kind of credential to recognize your achievements, and the other 90 of you do not. And that's an issue that we need to be able to address as a profession, and NIGP needs to address as an association. Now, we're not suggesting that everyone should be able to get certification, okay? Because it is a benchmark, and there needs to be eligibility requirements, and it is a pinnacle for many people. But How are people recognized in their profession? That's why this issue of choice, that it's not only just certification, but it's also specializations and certificates that make it a lot better for you to be able to recognize for the learning that you've achieved. So the impact is to increase the number of members at NIGP who have some kind of credentialing, digital badges, etc. I also believe that we need to focus in on the competencies that you need in order to be successful. So it's wonderful that we're really focusing on the kind of the procurement techniques. Okay, all of those kind of things that are on the kind of the right side of the competency framework, like sourcing and planning and contract administration. But as we talk to the bosses of public procurement, this whole thing about understanding strategy, how do you get a seat at the table? How do you get a voice so that the organization that you work for sees procurement as a trusted advisor in saving their tax dollars? So why is strategy important? Why is leadership important? Why are business skills important to what you do in the workplace? So it's much more, the CPP will be more comprehensive, covering those areas. And it is focused on competencies. So remember, competencies are based on what you do in the work environment, not necessarily what you know. So it goes beyond the knowledge and embraces skills and performance that you need in order to be successful. So the CPB more focused and comprehensive, again, and then aligning so that we are aligning all of the learning with these credentialing options that you have under a single organization called NIGP. So we're not replicating everything from administration to marketing, et cetera. It's all under one organization. I do want to say, to be very, very clear, is that the individuals in NIGP that develop content are on one team. And the individuals that are working on certification and the certification exams and what's on the exam, there is a very, very strong firewall between those two organizations so that they're not sharing with each other. Because the last thing you need is to go to a class, someone tells you exactly what's on the exam and you pass the exam. That's great that you pass the exam. What you want to be is successful in the job. And so spoon feeding you all of the answers to the exam so you pass it in a 4-hour period is really not the best thing for you. So those two areas will be very, very separate, and there will be a firewall between them. This is very, very, it's exactly what our friends at the Institute for Supply Management do, ISM. It's exactly what they do at NCMA, Contract Management Association, exactly what they do at APICS, exactly what they do for the HR professionals. They have that firewall, but it's all under one organization. And for you, to make it very customer-centric, so you have a single portal where you are maintaining all of your learning activities and also all your credentialing activities. So envision that when you are taking these competencies, or you go to the annual forum, or you attend a workshop or a webinar, all of that information is in your learning portal within Aspire, which is NIGP's AMS. And it's the same area where in confidence your credentialing activities are kept. So rather than going back to you and saying, listen, Mary, tell me how you earned your recertification points, because it's in the same portal, all of that information just automatically translates into your credentialing record, rather than having to rekey all that in. So these are the 4 primary areas of why NIGP is embarking on this new certification program. Let's talk a little bit about the next steps. Because one of the questions people have said to me is, when's this available and what are the eligibility requirements going to be? NIGP is deeply committed to making sure that we follow all the standards that have been established for a professional certification program. you may or may not know this, but ANSI, which is the, the kind of the godfather for establishing standards, they actually accredit certification programs. Right now, I know that NCMA is proceeding to get their ANSI accreditation, and NIGP wants to get this program accredited as well by ANSI. Now, the program has to be in existence and it has to be in operation for a year before we can seek that accreditation. But everything that we are aligning as we build this certification program meets or exceeds the ANSI accreditation and the standards, the ISO standards that have been created. 17024 is the ISO standard. If you have insomnia tonight, go to ISO, go to 17024. You'll get to learn what those standards are. But it really is important that we do things the right way. So we begin with a practice analysis. It's a piece of research that tells us everything from the test specifications, the domains, the weightings, the test formats, delivery mechanisms, and, oh, by the way, the eligibility criteria. Because eligibility should come from the practice analysis. It should be driving that. The practice analysis is already underway. So we have a practice analysis panel that met last weekend. They are developing that piece of research. Probably in the next 2 weeks, you may be part of that sample of the analysis. If you get something from the practice analysis team, we really strongly encourage you to participate in the survey because it really helps us frame what the certification exam will look like. So when we talk about weightings, certainly more than likely, it's going to cover all of those 7 key focus areas. But how much of it will be on leadership and how much of it, that's what we call a relative weighting, how much of it will be on sourcing. That's determined by the practice analysis. Now, once the research comes back and then the practice analysis team looks at it and they bring it over to the certification commission, which is an independent body within NIGP, that's when they will begin to identify the eligibility requirements, and that's around the November 2019 timeframe. So I cannot tell you right now that a degree will or will not be required. I cannot tell you how many years of experience is going to be required. I cannot tell you if any, pre-application procurement training will be required, because that should be built in order to meet ANSI standards. That should be built into the practice analysis. So the only thing I can tell you right now is stay tuned. We will obviously convey all that information to our members once it becomes available in November 2019. Certainly far in advance of the first time that you can sit for the exam. Once practice analysis occurs, then we move into test administration, and that's where a separate group of individuals begins to develop these test questions. It's guided by hiring of a testing and measurement specialist that will help us develop those test questions. It's about a 3-month process, takes us through about February of 2020. And then we do a standard setting. That basically is what they call a cut score, or to identify the passing score for the exam. All 3 of these major components have to be in place before we can begin to offer the certification. So what do you do in the interim? Well, a few things just to mention. The foundation courses that NIGP has been providing on sourcing and legal aspects, etc., those are continuing. We'll continue to run those courses both online and through our chapter network. They have in it the body of knowledge that's tested by the UPPCC. So if you're looking at your journey and you've been working on getting your O and B through the UPPCC, absolutely continue that journey. The foundation courses are there for you. Then the certification prep that really helps you with everything from the prep courses to the study guides, the assessment tools, the flashcards, that whole package of optional certification prep tools will continue. We're running both a CPPO and a CPPB review course in Austin, and I believe there's 10 additional O and B review courses that are being offered through our chapter networks between now and the next UPPCC test administration period, which is in October of 2019. So if you are a candidate, continue to seek certification, particularly because if you are a CPBO or B holder, you have an option of an abbreviated exam to bridge into the CPP. So what is a bridge? Again, going back to standards that are available through ANSI and through that ISO standard, you have to be able to, as a candidate, to demonstrate that you have all of the kind of the knowledge and skills and competencies that are embedded into a new examination. So once we know exactly what is in the CPP, we will kind of cross-map to both the O and B body of knowledge that's publicly available. You go right onto the UPPCC website and see all of the domains in the body of knowledge. And basically what you do is you build a bridge. So if someone who has an O and B wants to, as an option, get their CPP from NIGP, they will take an exam that covers just the gaps that are not in the O and the B, just those gaps. And so that's what they call a bridge exam. I can't grandfather you from a CPBO to a B into the CPP unless they are 100% match. And my sense is, and when I say mine, I'm really talking on behalf of NIGP, is that a lot of those more comprehensive skills, those soft skills, like the strategy and leadership and business, that's not in the OMB. And so at a minimum, you're going to see those move forward. But we want to make sure that individuals like myself who have put a lot of effort into receiving their CPBO or B have that option to bridge to the CPB if they choose. Again, this is all about you. This is all about the choices that you have. If you decide that you want to bridge, then NIGP will offer you free virtual prep, free application, free examination process. And that will be available through June 2021. That is not a typo. So for the first 15 months of the bridge exam, you will have that opportunity to take advantage of all those free options, the free prep, the free app, and the free examination. So the bridge will first come available through the prep guides, looking at March of 2020 on the prep guides and the courses. Then again, those virtual ones will be free. And the first bridge exams around the April 2020 timeframe. These are for individuals that want to bridge as an option from the O and B over to the CPB. Now, if you don't have an O or a B, then you can take the comprehensive exam. And again, those guides and courses in May of 2020 and then June of 2020 will be the first exams that will be available. So, just in summary, and then we'll take a series of questions from you. What we're trying to do is both reimagining what learning and recognition looks like. It's all about you. It's about giving you the flexibility. It's about giving you the choice to make sure that learning and credentialing are relevant to where you are today and the pathway that you aspire to be in the future. We went through this relatively quickly, but if you're not aware, at the home page of NIGP, you will see this logo on Pathways. It's on the left-hand side. There is an area where you can say, click here or learn more. That will take you to our Pathways microsite, which is much more detailed. So we'll walk you through everything from the certificates to the specializations to the certification. They'll talk about the competency framework, and then there's a fairly robust FAQ broken down by each of those categories. There's close to 100 FAQ questions and answers on there. There's also just a little button that says, I want to ask a question, and you can type out your question, and we'll be glad to respond to you. So that the most important thing is that you are aware of this journey that we call Pathways, that you understand that it's built on a competency framework, and that it offers a variety of options for you in terms of credentialing, whether that's badges or certificates or specialization or the new certification. And when all else fails, I'm also available. If you want to just send me an email, I have an open email policy, so please ask questions. It's really important that you feel comfortable about what NIGP is developing for you. Again, this is not for everyone. You may just say specialization is the right route for you, or I'm just starting the profession, so yeah, I want to start right at the baseline and get my digital badges. That's great. It's an idea to be able to provide as much learning and as much recognition as possible. So with that, let's go to a series of questions. Shauna asks, is the pricing for classes and credentialing for the CPB set up as a lump sum, or is it a la carte? It's really a la carte, and that's because we're not really sure what emphasis will be placed on each one of the competency modules. It's highly unusual, and therefore will not actually be the case for the CPB, that you have to take learning modules in order to sit for an exam. That certainly is not the case with the UPPCC. As a matter of fact, that would be a violation of the ANSI standards. You can't require someone to take a course in order for them to sit. So the pricing for the classes for content will really be based on the level of effort of the content. As I said earlier, some competencies may be a 30-minute tutorial or a 2-hour tutorial. And so that pricing is going to be a lot different than a 16-hour, more comprehensive competency module. So you can kind of think of these, they'll be priced according to the level of effort that's required for us at NIGP to develop it, but more importantly, for you to be able to take that competency. So we do want to kind of separate that from the cost to take the certification. I think a follow-up question is, how will the testing be administered? That's also a decision that comes down with a practice analysis panel. As they do their piece of research and they forward that on to this independent certification commission, that commission will actually be ultimately responsible for the establishment of policies. I will tell you that there is quite a bit of interest, so don't quote me on this. I'd say this is the way it's going to be, because Grimm said so in August. But the commission is looking at a more modular exam. So rather than having you take a very comprehensive 4-hour pass-fail exam, they're thinking about breaking the exam maybe into 2 or 3 modules. Very similar to what you would do with, I believe the CPA exams are built that way. Our colleagues over at ISM built the CPSM exam. It's a modular exam. It allows you to do as a test taker, and by the way, if you're like me, I'm a horrible test taker. So a modular exam lets me really focus in on studying, a particular area. And it may be the areas, it may be one of the modules may be all kind of the technical questions that relate to the profession, and the second module is all the kind of the behavioral competency related things that will be tested there. Or it may be, sourcing and contract administration in one module and leadership and strategy in a second module. We don't know how that will end up. But I do know, I can say that the commission has been interested in looking at a modular exam. And then they still to be determined, Shauna, is whether that is what they call a brick-to-mortar testing facility, like the UPPCC has now, where you go to a prometric testing facility and take the exam. Will it be available online? You know, there's quite a few certification programs that are looking at an online way in which to test. It's an online proctored exam. It's very, very interesting, cool concept, where you're using a web camera and you can sit there in your own office and take an exam. We don't know how that's going to play out. So it's kind of a wait and see. We will have that information available in the November timeframe. Once it becomes available, you'll see another major push to communicate to you as our NIGP members about those next steps in the certification process. And we'll probably also do a couple of webinars to give people updates on what's happening. We want you to have that information available to you at least 6 months before you begin to decide whether the CPB is a part of the journey for you. And again, it's about choice. So we're not saying that the CPB replaces the OMB. That's not where this is all about. There is differentiation, and so it is about choice as well. So Derek asked the viewing pricing for the modules. Again, what we need to do, Derek, first is to finish building the content so that we can identify that a content in a module is a 30-minute or a 6-hour, and then the pricing is accordingly. The market is showing that at least modular learning is running somewhere in that $40 to $50 an hour sweet spot. As I said earlier, what we heard very, very clearly from our members is please make sure that that learning is affordable. One of the things that we think is a real advantage is rather than sending you to a 3-day class, and it may be, you know, in another city or another state or province, because it's available both online and in person, it should save you dollars. And because you are customizing what your journey looks like, so don't be like Grimm and sit in a class where 4 hours are dedicated to warehousing and inventory control when I don't do that on the job. So that saves me time and energy. It really allows me to take my precious training dollars and apply it directly to the modules, the learning modules that are applicable and relevant to the work I do. So we do think that that's a way in which to make sure that the Pathways is an affordable alternative for you. So, Justin, any additional questions that came through on your side that I haven't seen on the chat line?
Yeah, Rick, we have one question. I have my B and O. Can I earn the CPP and still keep active my original certifications, or does the bridge move you over to CPP and then you wouldn't recertify for the O and B?
No, it's all about choice. So individuals may decide that they will maintain their O and B. That's great. That's perfect. Others will decide that they're going to let it lapse and just get the CPP. You know, I've been around. I'm as old as dirt. So when the O's and B's first came out, I got my B first, and I'm not going to tell you when I got it, but it was a while ago. And then I got my O, and you know, back when I got my O, and I can tell you then, that was in 1993. People said, well, then you just drop your B, because all the stuff that you learn in your B is in the O. But the reality is that's not true. If you look at the body of knowledge that the UPPC has, there are things that are in the kind of the technical attributes of the B that are not examined in the O. And of course, then the O does deal with a lot more of the management and the officer pieces. So I really think it's very important that you both maintain the B and the O, and don't drop the B when you get the O. Now, other people have a different view on that, which is fine. But to your question is absolutely not required if you decide to bridge to drop your OMB. You worked hard on that, proud of your accomplishments, continue to maintain that OMB if you have it, and then make a decision whether, I don't make a decision until you see what the CPB is covering. And again, that will come out through the practice analysis about in the November timeframe. That will give you a good indication on whether this is something that is a good pathway for you. It's about you. It's not trying to get everyone to convert over to the CPB. I don't think that's never the intent. The intent is to give you another option that's covering competency-based learning and is covering more of those comprehensive soft skills you need in order to be successful in the workplace. It's not a replacement. Any other questions, Justin?
Looks like one more. Will the CPB have an expiration?
Great question. Don't know. All of those policies that are related to certification will be determined by that commission. And again, we're gonna really think of this in the November timeframe. I will tell you, however, that as a standard, there usually is an expiration date for certifications, and that's because for certification programs, they want you to maintain currency of the knowledge and competencies. So it would be strange, but I can't quote one or yes or no. It'd be strange if the CPB does not have an expiration date that requires recertification.
Now, it looks like we had one more question pop up in chat. I'm in the early stages of meeting the course requirements for the CPBB. Will I be able to transfer the courses I've taken to the CPP pathway?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question that we've heard a lot from, because we have people that have taken those courses, and so they're trying to figure out whether they can get the badges. So if you're thinking about getting the certificate, like the course certificates, one of the requisites, again, because ANSI also accredits certificate programs as well as certification programs. And the difference is on a certificate, it's mandated that you take the courses and then do an assessment in order to get a certificate. So you could not apply learning that you got, before today to a certificate program that's going to be offered. I want to think about this as building a new platform for the next generation of procurement professionals. So if you already have all the learning and you've got your that you need for let's just say sourcing, it doesn't make any sense for you to retake that the competency modules related to sourcing so you can get that course certificate. Now the question about whether it transfers to the CPPB pathway module, that's a different question. And you're gonna shoot me for this, but I don't know the answer. We're gonna have to wait and see, because there are usually three eligibility requirements for any professional certification. Formal education is one, work experience is two, and training related to the profession is three. Now, they don't have to have all three of those, or they could say, when it comes to training, we're not gonna have any requisites, because it really is about you being successful in taking the exam and demonstrating the competencies. So we don't know. But I will tell you that if you've taken courses through NIGP or through NASPO or any of our collegial organizations, that content, as long as it's procurement related, should meet any eligibility criteria that occurs for the CPP. I know it gets a little frustrating because you want the answers today, and I'm just saying, stay tuned. Those are pieces that are hinged to the practice analysis. That's why I can't overemphasize the practice analysis enough, because that's the phase that we're in now. And some of you, maybe all of you, will have an opportunity to participate in that piece of research. And that piece of research is driving these questions that you're seeking answers for. So Justin, I think we're getting very, very close to the end of the webinar. A couple things just to reemphasize. I want you to really make sure that you have an opportunity to go to the Pathways microsite. Just noodle around and look at the content there. Use the button to ask questions if you don't see anything in the FAQ. For those of you that are fortunate to join us in Austin, and now 2.5 weeks from now, I can't believe it's almost upon us, we will have right at the NIGP Registration Center an area called Pathways Place. We will have staff available there to, again, answer any questions you may have. We will have members of the Certification Commission there as well. We'll be talking about Pathways a lot in Austin because the most important thing is for you to be aware of what Pathways means and how it impacts you as a procurement professional. And ultimately, so that you understand your choices, you see the flexibility, you see the accessibility, you see the affordability, the things that you told us that you were keenly interested in achieving. So with that, thank you very much for spending this hour and a half with me and with Justin. We're grateful for your time. We're grateful for your engagement with NIGP. And, you know, we're big boys and girls here. So if you have a critique, things that you're not happy with, hey, let us know that as well, because that information really helps us always be better for you as our members. So thank you very much for joining us. We wish you the very best of the balance of the summer. And for those of you that are going to be in Austin, please stop by and say hi to me and connect me to this webinar. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick. I hope everyone enjoyed this webinar. Please take time to fill out the evaluation survey. A link containing the survey and a recording of this webinar will be emailed to everyone shortly. Thanks again and have a great day.